Welcome to On the Right Side of History with Kansans for Life. Come with us as we connect the pro-life movement's past to present, uncover hidden or forgotten history, and its connections to the battle still raging today. Now, here's our host, Danielle Underwood.
Hi, everyone. I'm Danielle Underwood, and welcome to our closing episode of the third season of the podcast. Before we get to our conversation today, I just want to take a moment to let you all know how much we appreciate you listening and sharing these conversations with your friends and family. On the Right Side of History with Kansans for Life is reaching people through 7 platforms, and in a crowded communication space, you've helped us grow to reach tens of thousands of listens and views. Thank you so much. If defending innocent life and protecting vulnerable lives is part of your core, your life mission, you can help fuel the fight in 2025 by giving a year-end gift today of any amount. We'll put the link to donate in the podcast description below. And now to today's podcast. Since 2021, Congressman Tracey Mann has represented the big 1st District of Kansas in the U.S. House of Representatives. Prior to that, he served as the 50th Lieutenant Governor of Kansas and spent years in private business and local civic engagement. Tracey and his wife Audrey live in Salina, Kansas, with their 4 children. Welcome, Congressman Mann.
Hey, thanks for having me. I really appreciate y'all doing this, and great to join you tonight.
Well, we're very grateful to have your leadership in Washington, D.C., representing Kansans there, and very grateful for you as your presence in the pro-life delegation that Kansas sends to Washington, D.C. So thank you for everything you do. And also thank you for being our season closer for our podcast. We just are completing our 3rd season, and we love having you as our closing guest.
As Christmas is coming up here, that's great. Hey, it's an honor to get to serve in Congress, to represent the 1st District, but it's also an honor to get to stand up for life. You know, if we are not for protecting the unborn, the most vulnerable people in our country, what are we doing, right? And so it's an honor to get to. We have a long ways to go. I'm looking forward to a new administration and some changes in this town, but full steam ahead. So.
Yeah, well, that was a perfect segue into my first question for you, because I wanted to ask you just first off, what do you think about the election results in November? What do you think they communicated about the will of the American people and the will of Kansans?
Well, they communicated a lot of things up and down the ballot. One of the bigger themes is that people are tired of business as usual, which means things like wide open borders, means things like spending way more money than we're taking in, inflation that results from that, this crazy war on fossil fueled energy. But also, I think it's rejecting radical policies of the left. One of the, front and center of my mind is these pro-abortion policies. And it's really out of step, certainly with Kansas, but also with the country. And I think voters spoke very, very clear first of last month.
We definitely agree with that. We saw such just extremism on the side of the pro-abortion, the Democrats, and what they led with and all of their messaging during that campaign, and it fell flat. So definitely.
It did. And let's just think through that. I mean, to say that that there are some candidates who are running from the far left that aren't willing to articulate or state or place any limits on abortion is a radical, abhorrent, evil position and policy to take, and as a result, justifiably, they received a pounding at the ballot box November the 5th.
Yes, Kansans soundly rejected that. So let's talk about federal legislation. So thinking about the Hyde Amendment, which protects federal taxpayer funding from being used to pay for abortions. It's been in place for decades. It was threatened under the Biden administration. We know he looked for loopholes to try to work around that, to exploit. And I'm just wondering, what do you foresee as its future with the dramatic changes in leadership in Washington, D.C.?
Well, when I think about one of the immediate results of the election, it is that we're going to get the Hyde Amendment back in place. And for those watching this podcast, I realize most people know what the Hyde Amendment is. But for those that don't, it's this concept that, to your point, for decades now, there's always been agreement that whether someone supports life or does not, that we would never use federal taxpayer dollars to go towards abortion, which is common sense. It's the right thing to do. And that's been the law of the land forever, pretty non-controversial until the Biden administration came along and they chipped away at Hyde every opportunity they could. And it wasn't just dollars going directly for abortion. Then it's things like dollars going towards transportation, for someone in the military to go get an abortion, right? Like it's a whole bunch of efforts and monies that they wanted to spend to the detriment of life. So with this election, so we fought tooth and nail, and I feel like about every day to make sure that the Hyde Amendment, that those provisions were included in bills and legislation that got passed. Certainly with the new administration, with Republicans, pro-life Republicans controlling the House and the Senate, Hyde will be here to stay, and I think will just be a foregone conclusion in every bill that is included. But we also need to watch and make sure that proves to be the case every single time.
That's good to hear. I like the positive outlook there, and yes, we definitely agree. We want to keep watch on that, and make sure everything is good. So in 2023, Kansas legislators successfully passed the Born Alive bill here at the state level to protect infants who survived an abortion attempt. And, we know that there have been efforts at the federal level as well to pass a Born Alive bill. It's very similar to what we've done here. And I'm just wondering if you happen to know or if you have thoughts on the prospects for taking another run at that this year.
Well, I'm excited about it. It'll be reintroduced. We're only be co-sponsors of that day one. You look at what happened this term. The Born Alive bill came up. Every Republican voted for it. On the Democrat side of the aisle, you had one Democrat that voted for it, one that abstained, and 210 that voted against it, which means 98, maybe 99% of their caucus weren't willing to vote to say, hey, if a baby is born and survived an abortion, that we're going to take care of that child. I mean, it's hard to wrap your brain around how abhorrent that is, but it really shed light on how these radical, crazy policies are in place. And that whole belief system is alive and well, unfortunately, by a lot of folks in the Congress. And again, that's what was rejected last month at the ballot box. So optimistic moving forward, but really sad that we're going to have this conversation, right? I mean, you think about things that should be unanimous, simple, easy votes, and unfortunately did not have full agreement, far from it. So,
wow, that's so interesting to hear. Yeah, it is abhorrent to think that someone would actually be in favor of infanticide.
Yeah, I mean that's what call it for what it is, right? It's just it's crazy, and I think you really just look at where the Democrat Party platform is today. I think if we would have said even 5, 7, certainly 10 years ago that there would be a vote for a bill like this, and you wouldn't have at least half of Democrats for it, right? I mean, just how far that shift is, it just makes you, makes you sick to your stomach and makes you scratch your head a little bit.
Yeah.
So,
and I think Americans are waking up to that.
I think that's right.
It's not going to. Exactly right. They're going to have to rethink what they're supporting because it's just abhorrent to Americans.
No, that's exactly right. And credit the Kansas legislature, for passing that bill. Believe it was potentially was vetoed and then overridden, which is why veto-proof majorities matter when we have a pro-abortion governor in office in our state. But we've got to have a culture in our country, in our state, in our country, and policies that reflect a willingness and desire to protect life, but to also to see families thrive and to see folks start families. And I'm a supporter of IVF, of protecting the innocent life in the womb. Like let's be pro-family, let's be pro-women, let's be pro-moms, dads, pro-family, and let's grow a better future together as a country.
That is a perfect setup for my next question for you, because I was going to ask you about the HOPE Act. So the HOPE Act is something that you supported last session. And I think that we probably don't have enough familiarity about that in our state here. And we'd love to hear more about that piece of legislation and its prospects going forward, if you think that it's got some possibilities in the future.
Yeah, well, like the Born Alive Act, the HOPE Act is a common sense bill that we all should be able to agree that let's get expectant mothers access to the resource and information to really empower them to enter motherhood. I mean, this is another piece of common sense legislation, optimistic that it's going to move forward. In Kansas, a couple years ago or a year and a half ago, we had the Value Them Both Amendment. This concept, hey, let's value the child and the mother as well. The HOPE Act is an effort to really value and help moms out. And if done and passed, put into law, implemented right, is yet another pro-family, pro-life piece of legislation that could be fantastic for everybody.
And it would provide more information to women about life-saving resources, life-affirming resources for them if they're pregnant and looking for that kind of help. Is that basically?
Yeah. No, that's exactly right. And along with that, somewhat related is, my wife and I, we've been supporters of pregnancy services centers for a long, long time. We have a lot of great ones all over Kansas, certainly in my district. We live in Salina, so we support that one. I enjoy going to pregnancy service center banquets all over the district. I was in Hutch in Reno County here a few months ago, but it's just great when we see communities coming together to support moms, to support babies, to support families, and the HOPE Act would be helpful in that as well.
That's great to hear. Well, we'll be excited to keep tabs on that and to see where that goes, because I think, the more resources, the better for these women who, if they feel like they're being backed into a corner and that they have no options except for abortion, then we're doing something wrong. And we know that we know there's so many resources available for them by so many good-hearted people who are working in the pro-life movement to provide those. And we just need to connect the women with those resources that could be exactly what they need to be able to make a life-affirming decision for the life of their baby.
Exactly. And when they're at a tough spot or have difficult decisions, to know that they have options, to know what all the options are. When you have the abortion industry that's saying that you just have one option and that's to end a pregnancy, when in fact that is absolutely not true. And we've got to making sure that we can do everything we can to make sure that message is out there, that they are cared for, affirmed, and at the end of the day, that life is not just protected, but then comes into the world and is able to flourish and thrive here in our country.
Wow, that's great. I know you have spoken many times about, helping pregnant women in need get access to those resources. And so it is so encouraging to have leadership in Washington, D.C. that really gets it. I mean, you've actually been in a pregnancy resource center, pregnancy help center, helping, assisting them in what they're doing, and you've seen it firsthand. And that already is taking us so much farther down the road of getting to life-affirming legislation than someone that's walking into it that really doesn't understand what a pregnancy care organization provides to women.
And there's such assets for our state. I have to go here in a little bit, but I'll just tell you, my wife used to, volunteer in our one in Salina. We, contribute regularly to it. We try to support others. It's just, these are great people doing wonderful work for the benefit of all Kansans and unborn. And if we're not for the unborn and we're not protecting life, then I think we really need to reevaluate our priorities. So Thanks for doing this podcast and thanks for having me. I'm going to have to jet here.
All right.
Really appreciate you doing this and have a very Merry Christmas.
Thank you so much. We're so grateful to you and everything you're doing.
Great. Hey, thank you. Have a good day.
So the congressman had to run to the floor for a vote, and so we needed to let him go pretty quickly there. But we just wanted to make sure that we gave the appropriate thanks to him. So on behalf of Kansans for Life, we want to thank the congressman for spending time with us today and wanted to let him know that he has a lot of fans among our supporters because of his strong and outspoken stance on life issues. We are so grateful for the way he represents Kansans in Washington, D.C., and we're looking forward to hearing more from him in the future. So friends, thanks again for joining us this season. We love hearing from you. So let us know what you think by leaving us a comment here or by sending us an email at kfl@kfl.org. You can mark your calendars now for the Kansas March and Rally for Life in Topeka on Wednesday, January 29th. You can find full details on our website at kfl.org. And one final plug before we leave you. If you have last-minute shopping to do for the coffee lover in your life, consider a gift of 7 Weeks Coffee, which is the world's only pro-life coffee company. You can find the link on our homepage. Once again, that's kfl.org. Until next time, never forget, the pro-life movement is on the right side of history. Stay strong. The truth will overcome. Thanks, friends, and we will see you in January.